Hello, my name is Alyssa Marcano, and for my presentation, I'll be discussing the DSM-5. And to further analyze the DSM-5, I'll focus a little bit on substance use disorders. So before I begin, I just want to briefly explain what the DSM-5 is and what is its purpose. Again, obviously, for those who are studying psychology or abnormal psychology, in my case, will know a little bit about this, but this is for anyone who doesn't know or just wants a quick example or explanation. So DSM-5 stands for Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. So as the title suggests, this is used by healthcare professionals to diagnose mental disorders. And the reason that it's known as the Bible for psychiatrists is because this is the common standard. What this manual describes is what psychologists and psychiatrists across the United States are using. And there are different books, as I've learned through research and through reading, that have the same purpose but are used in different countries. So this is not the only way, it's just one way to look at mental disorders. So DSM-5 has a category called substance use disorders, and what this does, or what this describes, is maladaptive behavior that's brought on by repeated uses of different types of substances such as drugs, alcohol, and even now gambling, and eventually internet usage. So the DSM-5 has just recently added gambling disorders and is pending future inclusion of internet use. And so I want to discuss some of the similarities that gambling disorder and internet use disorder have in common with other substance use disorders. First, it's important to mention that there are many different theories on how substance use is viewed and how it comes to be, and also very different treatments with those different schools of thoughts that provide those perspectives. So the qualifications of having these disorders fall back on, in my opinion, on those views. So for gambling disorder, I want to talk about how it focuses on the addictive nature. So, anyone can have like a compulsion to use the internet or to gamble, they just want to. But it's different from feeling that addictive nature, which I think is defined by the following criteria. And this is found, obviously not just with gambling, but internet use and drug usage, alcoholism, and other substance abuses. So gambling is, but I think what defines a gambling disorder very clearly is that it does focus on the addictive nature rather than the compulsion or the impulse to gamble. So gambling, one of the criteria that was listed was gamble with large amounts of money to reach excitement. And to me, that just reminded me of when someone builds an intolerance to drugs. They start, you can start with, let's say, 80 milligrams or whatever the case may be, for example, 80 milligrams and of a certain type of pill. So then you want 160, and then you want 320, and then, it can lead to other severe consequences, death and all that bad stuff. So gambling with large amounts of money is like that build up, you get used to and comfortable in that, oh, well, I just bet $5,000. Well, now let me bet $10,000. So that's what it means to me, and that's where I saw a huge similarity. And how I thought of it was that essentially you need more to feel more. And that's present with alcoholism, heroin, cocaine, pretty much any drug that you have an addiction to. And now, triggered by upset feelings, I think that's a very peculiar criteria, because a lot of things can be triggered by upset feelings. You know, anger can be triggered by upset feelings, or just in general, so many other things. But again, I think the reason that it's important to have this as a criteria is because it's not just being triggered by upset feelings, but how these criteria work within and with each other. So for gambling, you need to have, I think it's 2 or more for a certain amount of time, or maybe 4. And so triggered by upset feelings may cause, you to want to gamble, feel that addictive nature to gambling, or want to spend that 10,000 rather than 5. And what is caused by those upset feelings is what makes it a disorder rather than an impulse. And that also goes for any substance abuse disorder, especially, in my opinion, alcoholism. Alcoholism may start off with upset feelings, being the trigger, and eventually just become a dependency, which is explained by one of the schools of thoughts. I believe the psychodynamic school of thought describes dependency as the cause of substance abuse. And then there's when a person puts their education, their career, or their relationships at risk, that's a big sign of some type of a disorder, because those things are just the basic elements of life, or at least here in America they are. You need to have an education, you need to have a career, and you most importantly need to have relationships. And when you're willing to put all those things at risk for something you feel a deep desire towards, there's really something wrong. And again, that goes along with any substance abuse disorder. And these are all, parts that are described. These are all criteria that are described by substance abuse. So then, internet use disorder, which is pending. So internet use disorder, which is pending future inclusion, I feel that it was important to mention specifically these two, because I think that these apply specifically or most accurately to internet use disorder, although everything that was mentioned in gambling disorder also applies in its sense to internet. It applies to internet use disorder. So for internet, feeling withdrawn when you're not allowed to use the internet is a big one, because obviously we need to have relationships. That's just how human interaction works. That's how the world, how education and careers work, through relationships. And when you prefer to have a relationship with your computer rather than other people, that can be a big sign of an internet use disorder. And then when internet interferes with social life and relationships, when you simply just can't have those things, those simple pleasures of, having a job that's going to pay your bills and make you happy, or, a relationship, whether it be with your parent or your friend or a loved one, or, a significant other, it can be a huge negative impact, which can lead to a whole bunch of other things, maybe depression, anxiety, and just all other things that come with negative aspects of disorders. So then I want to just talk briefly about The differences from substance use. The biggest difference is that gambling disorder and internet use are forms of behavior rather than substances. So, with that, obviously, there are no physical signs. There's no bruising where the needle enters, where the needle pierces the skin on someone's arm or in between their toes, wherever it may be. There's no physical notion for other people to know that you need help, and that sets a fine line between, is this really a substance use disorder? Although all of the criteria seems to fit with substance use and behavior, but it calls the question why this is not considered a behavioral disorder. And also, internet use, unlike gambling disorder, has not had any effective treatment as of yet. So through my research, I discovered that shock therapy and talk therapy and different types of therapies and treatments have been tried to treat those who suffer from internet use disorder, and none have been effective. And with other substance use disorders, treatment can be temporary rather than permanent, but it's still effective in the time span that it's been in use. So that is a little bit about substance use, which is categorized in the DSM-5. Thank you for listening.